Anybody else make it to the North American Convergence this summer? No? Okay, so our friend Ruth was going to report in, but she didn't make it today, so I'll do it. It was in Minnesota in late August. It was the first ever North American permaculture convergence, although it was the vast majority of the folks there were from the United States. There were a few people from Canada. I think there were like, if I remember correctly, there were about 400 people at the convergence, which is pretty good. I would guess there were maybe 25 folks from Canada. There was one person from Mexico. But it was a pretty amazing convergence. The main, I have two main impressions that I took away from it that I'd like to share with you. The first one is more about sort of the group dynamics of the convergence. There were a lot of people there who were part of, I think, what we could consider the first wave of permaculture in North America. Folks who'd taken PDCs in the 80s or 90s, folks who'd taken PDCs with some of the original teachers who came over from Australia and who've been involved with permaculture in, on our continent for decades. And then there was obviously a huge amount of younger folks there, like 35 and under. I felt, and I think a lot of people felt this way, that there was a pretty significant passing of the torch, in that most of the younger people there were almost entirely interested in social permaculture, and the permaculture sort of as a design system for agricultural setting, I felt like was sort of like, I don't want to say a thing of the past, but it was not even close to being the focal point of the convergence. And although a lot of the chatter and rumors that I heard going into that convergence were about the fact that there were going to be a lot of power struggles there, and some of the older folks who've been sort of in charge for a long time trying to hold on. That did not happen at all. Didn't happen at all. There was no infighting at the convergence at all. And I think that there was a great amount of respect for the younger generation's interest in moving permaculture more into the realm of design of culture and design of community. The one other observation that I'll say, which I just started to allude to, is that one of the main focuses of that convergence was on some of the emerging organizations or the emerging organizational structures that are happening, specifically Gaia University, the Permaculture Institute of North America, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and the Permaculture Research Institute, which is headed by Scott Pittman. And he, for a long time, Scott Pittman, who's out of New Mexico, basically asserted that he had inherited Bill Mollison's leadership of the permaculture community in North America. Some of you may be familiar with this, some of you not. There used to be, I'm just going to go straight into the next thing on China, if that's all right with facilitators. There used to be diplomas offered originally, and you can get plenty of other information on this elsewhere. Originally, you took your PDC, you spent 2 years compiling a portfolio of your work, and then you applied to Mollison's organization in Australia to get a degree, a diploma. And they tried to set that up in the US. It worked for a while, and then, do you know when that fizzled out, John?
I don't know when it fizzled out, but I know it did. It wasn't strong in the beginning.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem like there was any real way to organize it.
Right.
Who's in authority, and that was always the question. Bill Mollison was really not in the picture enough to be helpful.
So there have been several decades in North America of a power struggle of people saying, I'm in charge of permaculture, I'm in charge of permaculture, I'm the one who's going to offer the diplomas. What's happened over the last 5 years is that Gaia University has started offering diplomas. The Permaculture Research Institute relaunched the diploma program, and then a group of the most prominent permaculturists in North America has founded this organization called PINA, the Permaculture Institute of North America, and they just this month started offering diplomas. And what happened at the convergence is all three of those organizations got together and agreed to not do anything to undermine each other's programs, and that they would mutually recognize each other's diplomas. That's a really, really good thing. Maybe, at least for a period of time, that era of infighting is over. So I want to talk about PINA because I think that they kind of shook out as the most influential organization, really just because of the folks that have organized it and the sort of scope of where they're at. It's the board of directors there is Jude Hobbs, Kenny Livingston, Wayne Wiseman, Peter Bain, and Sandy Cruz. So those are folks from all over the country. They're really well-known permaculture teachers. And they've set up this model where they are a temporary board of directors. They've designed a structure and they've launched this diploma program. But what they intend to do is to basically set up, or they don't want to set up, they want to have other people set up small regional hubs of PINA that can basically oversee the diploma program and offer professional support to permaculturists all over the country. So it could be like an Eastern Pennsylvania hub. And then we would elect a board member to the national board. So they want to phase themselves out and be and have this centralized national or continental board that gets elected by regional hubs. And they have all of this figured out already. You can go to their website. It's PINA, PINA.in, which stands for Institute. And you can read this whole structure. Again, I think a lot of people went to the National Convergence with a lot of reservations about what they were doing, and I think that most of that was alleviated. I didn't get a sense at all that there was any kind of real effort to control everything top down. I think that really the main impetus is that they want to help and they want to be supportive. So what they asked people to do at the Continental Convergence was to go back to our regions and to organize and to see if there would be a groundswell of support to form regional hubs. And so I think that's one of the main pieces of conversation that we can have today. Are there any other questions about PINA or the Continental Convergence?
Is the diploma program still submitting portfolio?
Yeah, so all three of the organizations that are offering diplomas, actually, let me backtrack slightly. Not Gaia University, but the Research Institute and PINA. The way it both works is you get your PDC from whomever, and one thing that both of those organizations are working towards is creating a registry of teachers who offer PDCs. So you get a PDC from one of these teachers, and then you spend 2 years compiling a portfolio. PINA has like 12 different areas, I think, that you can get a diploma in. So you have to compile work in one of those areas. You submit your portfolio. Both of those organizations have like mentors that you work with, sort of distance learning type thing for the 2 years. And then if your portfolio is acceptable, you get a diploma. Gaia University is actually an accredited institution of higher learning. So you actually go for like a 2 or 4 year degree, and you can get a degree in permaculture.
Just on the FYI, Gaia University is also really active at the international convergence. They're big supporters of it also. So they're everywhere and they're really doing great work.
Yeah, their whole curriculum is all based on permaculture. Their organizational structure is designed with permaculture. But they're similar to some of these colleges like Warren Wilson and Goddard and Prescott, where you as a student design your own curriculum and you work with a mentor sort of long distance and get a degree that way. Any other questions?
Having been not really involved, but noticing a lot of this going on in this town, I remember when they were trying to make things very organized and having strict guidelines about this and that, and how there would be a lot of tension about that. And you realize that it just really wasn't gonna work, because permaculture isn't a structural thing that much. It's more of a feeling about the way things ought to be. And something like what's going on now is absolutely wonderful and exactly what was needed so long ago. This amount of freedom that you're talking about.
I have the same question. Logan, down there was a wonderful book on permaculture, and what that is good. And you just mentioned that, you know, in Africa and South America and whatnot, it's all a social movement, it's all community by community. And to me, one of the real issues, we got three really devastating, we got a lot of devastating things going on. But economic justice, environmental justice, and social justice in this country is just really falling down. Why are we going to be so concerned about a diploma when we've got so many social problems we need to work at, and they come out of the heart? And really, you know, doesn't matter if any of us, you know, have a diploma, if in fact we're doing good work and making people aware, you know, and getting community gardens and things going in schools and you know, the press communities and everything else. It seems that would be a focus where I would like to work more is working with the community about what and being less concerned about, you know, how we prevent.
I think that those are gonna be things that we're gonna touch on more in like the visioning session and the working groups. They're all really good points, but for now, we're not as much asking questions, and having that conversation until we get to the parts where it's more brainstorming. But it is very valid, I think we should bring it back up.
That's it?
All right,